In the year 1968, an 11-year-old Mary Flora Bell sadistically murdered two little boys. This sent shockwaves throughout her neighborhood. Let's get into it. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Crime with Carrie. This week we have a very intriguing case on an 11-year-old female murderer. So Mary Flora Bell was born on May 26, 1957 in Newcastle in England. She was born to a mother named Betty McCricket and a dad named Billy Bell. Her mom was a prostitute who usually worked 7 days a week, mostly out of their home. Sometimes she went out for work and could even go as far as Scotland for prostitution. Her dad was an alcoholic and well known to the police for numerous fights and thefts he had been involved in. Due to her father's crime and alcoholism and her mother's prostitution, Mary never got much attention, love, or grooming from her parents at all. Mary's mom had her at the age of 17, thus she didn't have the mental capacity or readiness to take care of her. Betty had a bipolar disorder and had attempted to kill Mary as an infant several times. When Mary was only a few months old, she actually threw Mary out of a window. Another instance, she claimed that the infant accidentally took her sleeping pills and got very ill, even though so many people claimed they witnessed Betty giving Mary those sleeping pills as sweets. Betty asked her family members to take Mary off her hands, but they all refused to help her. Mary grew up in a very poor town in Newcastle called Scottwood. Many of the inhabitants were criminals, and many of the kids were left to play outside unsupervised in these harsh conditions, at times even late into the night, especially if their mothers were prostitutes. Mary's school friends recall her having a very quick temper and mood swings. 1 minute she'd be fine and bubbly, and the other she'd snap and become aggressive. When she was only 8 years old, the other kids, particularly the girls, were so scared to play with her and actually used to run away each time they saw her coming. They described her snapping episodes as quite scary. Her eyes would usually bulge, she'd yell, and even like to grab people by the throat. One of Mary's classmates recalled witnessing Mary choke a younger girl until her face turned red and her lips turned purple. It took an older kid to break this chokehold. Now you'd wonder what the teachers had to say, because they were very aware of Mary's bullying and temper. Many students used to come and report her doing various stuff like putting out cigarettes on them. Even the teachers witnessed some of these, but due to some reasons incomprehensible, they rarely punished her. At home, Mary Bell was best friends with her next-door neighbor who was 2 years older than her. She was called Norma Bell, coincidentally, even though they were not related. Norma had some form of undiagnosed mental disorder that made her slower than her age, causing Mary to dominate over her. Whatever Mary said, Norma did. On May 11th, 1968, 10-year-old Mary Bell and 12-year-old Norma picked up a 3-year-old boy and took him out to buy some sweets. An hour later, the boy was found all alone on the streets, dazed and bleeding, so the police and ambulance were called. The boy recovered, yet the girls faced no punishment. The next day, a local woman went to the police with a complaint that Mary Bell had tried to strangle her daughter. Her daughter, named Pauline, was playing in a sandpit with Mary when suddenly Mary snapped and strangled her while trying to push sand into her mouth. But once again, police did nothing. 2 weeks later, on May 25th, 1968, a 4-year-old boy named Martin Brown was on the streets playing with his friends. They moved to an abandoned building to continue playing, which was quite normal. They were climbing the stairs and descending. Suddenly, one of his friends found him on the ground and thought he had an accident, so he ran to inform Martin's mom. Martin's mom ran to this abandoned house where there was already a crowd gathering. She saw a young man carrying her son's limp body. 4-year-old Martin Brown was taken to the local hospital but was pronounced dead upon arrival due to the mysterious circumstances under which he died. All alone in an abandoned building, the police were called. At first, they thought he ingested some pills that the previous tenant of this building had left behind. Another theory was that since Martin was scared of heights, one of his friends had helped him climb up, and when he looked down the building, he died of shock. The postmortem, however, failed to find a definite cause of death. The next day, May 26th, Mary was at Norma's house playing when Norma's dad walked in on them and saw Mary trying to choke out his daughter. He ran and separated them, but just felt it was an aggressive game they were playing and warned them never to play it again. The next day, which was May 27th, the police were called to a local nursery that had been broken into over the weekend. Nothing was stolen. The perpetrator just trashed the place. The police, however, did find 4 pieces of paper. One said, "I murdered so I may come back." Another read, "We did murder Martin Brown. Fuck off, you bastard." The others were a whole mumble of slurs. Police disregarded this as a prank. The next day, Mary went to school as normal and actually wrote about Martin's death in her book. Under this letter, she drew a picture of a young boy laying dead and a man discovering the body, and next to his body, there was a little bottle labeled tablets. Now remember one of the theories of the police, that Martin might have swallowed tablets left by a former tenant. But then this wasn't released to the press or the media. Martin's auntie actually used to babysit Mary and Norma. So Martin's own mother, June, used to see them at her sister's house. After Martin's death, the girls always used to ask June how she was feeling, and she actually thought that was sweet and showed that they cared. Before Martin was buried, Mary and Norma turned up one day and randomly asked to see Martin, and that made June confused because she knew the girls were aware that Martin was dead. So she reminded them, and Mary replied with, "Oh, I know he's dead. I want to see him in his coffin." She found that weird and turned them away. On July 31st, 1968, Mary and the other neighborhood kids came to watch the demolition of abandoned buildings as it was being done to enhance the safety of the kids due to Martin's case. Mary and Norma found a 3-year-old boy named Brian Howell. They took him to the field, and that same night, Brian was reported missing. News about Brian went round the neighborhood, and a bunch of people came to help his mother search for him. And guess who was part of the search party? Mary and Norma. That same night, Brian's body was found in the field half naked. Parts of his hair had been cut off. He had a couple of stab wounds on his legs that seemed to have been made by the same scissors that cut his hair. The letter M was also carved into his stomach. It was, however, discovered during his autopsy that he died of strangulation and that the stab wounds were made after he died. Given the similarities between the death of Brian and Martin Brown, the police decided to reopen Martin's case. They made the link after confirming his death as a homicide and officially announced that they were looking for a killer, probably a child. This intrigued Mary so much. She was always asking questions and appearing at neighborhood interviews. She even bragged to some girls that she had strangled a little boy, and this caused multiple people who already knew of her violent tendencies to direct the police into looking into her as a suspect. So the police followed. I tried to talk to Mary, but her dad Billy refused and even threatened to let the dog on them. But around that time, there was a breakthrough. A boy came forward to tell the police that he had witnessed Brian's murder. This boy was a 9-year-old with the mental capacity of a 4-year-old. So at that time, he didn't realize the gravity of what was happening until eventually he told his parents. This boy told the police that he heard Mary say that 3-year-old Brian had a sore throat and she could soothe his sore throat if she massaged it. He agreed and she did just that, until she started to tighten her grip till she killed him. The police picked up the girls for questioning and kept them in a home so that no one could influence their responses. They also went to their school to get their books to compare to the handwriting of the notes that they found when that school was ransacked. Though this couldn't be confirmed as the same, it looked eerily similar to Mary's handwriting. But as they went through Mary's books, you recall, as I said in the beginning, they found that letter that Mary wrote after she killed Martin Brown. They saw the drawing of Martin and the tablet she drew next to him. This evidence, however, was never revealed to the media. So how would she have known about this unless she was at the crime scene? This was the last piece of evidence that solidified the case. They even theorized that maybe she fed Martin these pills. On August 8, 1968, both Mary and Norma were charged with 2 counts of murder each. Their trials began after 4 months, where both girls professed their innocence and blamed each other. The court realized that Mary lacked emotion as she was questioned. She was asked of the notes she left at the daycare, and she admitted that that was her, but she did that just to be funny and actually did not commit the murders. The court requested psychiatrists to examine Mary, and all of them came back with one diagnosis: Mary was simply a psychopath. Norma, however, was acquitted of the murders on the grounds that she was simple-minded and easily influenced by Mary. Mary was found guilty not of murder, but manslaughter on the grounds that she was clinically insane. Because she was 11 years old and mentally unstable, she was to be rehabilitated rather than punished. She was sent to a rehab boarding school. Mary always blamed her mother for how she turned out and even wrote a letter to her mom, begging her to go into the court and take full responsibility for her crimes, hoping that if they heard how she was raised and the trauma she experienced at home, they'd find her innocent on those grounds. After a few years, she was put into an open prison, which is a prison with little supervision. In 1977, at 20 years, Mary actually escaped this open prison. It is said that she escaped to go and lose her virginity. She was, however, found and returned, and she lost her freedom privileges. In 1980, after serving 12 years for her crimes, Mary was deemed no longer a threat to the community and was released. She is currently living her life under a different identity, and no one knows where she is. Mary had a daughter 4 years after her release, and at the age of 51, she had a granddaughter. So guys, this brings us to the end of the Mary Bell case. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think 12 years was enough? Do you think she should have been tried as an adult? Till next week, have a great week.